Knowing that today she and Nikita would have an important event, Kristina woke up with the first rays of the sun, stretching sweetly. The girl got up and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. But finally we would have our own place. I was so tired of moving around in rented apartments, and here we have our own house, and almost for nothing. But isn't it a miracle? Thought Kristina, brewing flavored coffee. Nikita came across the ad for sale accidentally, thinking that the owner would ask for such a luxurious mansion a big price. The guy for a long time did not dare to call, but when he did it, literally dumbfounded from the proposed real estate agent terms. As it turned out, it was possible to buy it in installments. And the amount for it was almost 3 times less than the prescribed in such cases. That's lucky. Yes, to pass by such an opportunity simply cannot pass by. What am I for nothing that I sit in the office 24 hours a day to earn an extra penny? If I miss such an opportunity, I will not forgive myself forever," said Nikita, excited at the idea of buying a house. "Sure, honey, I don't mind. You know better, you're the main earner in our family," answered Christina, who has long wanted to get their own corner. The next day, she and Nikita were already at the notary and, having drawn up the necessary contract, put their signatures. According to it, the couple had to pay the due amount for the house within a year. It was pointed out that if for any reason they failed to pay it, then it was to be returned to its owner together with the money given earlier without the possibility of refund. "I will pay this amount in 6 months, the chief has promised to promote me, so everything will be all right," hastened to assure his wife, joyful Nikita. Of course. Christine for a moment had an uneasy feeling, which immediately disappeared as soon as she imagined herself the happy owner of the house. The only thing that confused the girl was that the real owner of the house during the signing of all the papers behaved somehow strange. From the man's face and all the time did not leave a smug expression, as if he felt his superiority over the couple who entered his house. In the end, Christine wrote it all off to excessive suspicion, caused by the nervousness of such a crucial moment. Therefore, preparing for the move, the girl resolutely banished anxious thoughts and woke Nikita with a caressing touch on his hand. "What is it already time? And I thought to still sleep," grumbled Nikita and got out of bed. And soon, after drinking coffee, the guy changed his anger into mercy and said, "Well, Kristina, let's go?" The girl nodded happily, burning with impatience to move to a new home as soon as possible. The mansion was outside of town, and it took the young couple about half an hour to get there. Of course, it was not the first time they had been here, and they knew that the house was in good condition, and there was an excellent plot of land with a garden, vineyards, and wells. They opened the gate in the courtyard and went inside. How beautiful it is! And look at these flower beds. Here it will be possible to plant flowers," Kristina whispered admiringly. Nikita grinned understandingly, once again convinced that all girls are the same and cannot live without flowers. Entering the house, the guy immediately fell into cleverness. Apparently, no one had lived here for a long time, and before settling in, the newlyweds needed a general cleaning. But Kristina, like any woman, immediately volunteered to start it immediately. "Honey, please get me a bucket of water, and I'll look for a mop and some rags." Nikita readily rushed to fulfill his wife's errand, but to his great surprise, the water from the faucet for some reason stubbornly did not want to page. Remembering that there is a well in the yard, Nikita smiled and hurried to it. There was no bucket near the well, and the rusty chain leading into the depths was stretched like a guitar string. Apparently the bucket was at the bottom. Taking hold of the handle, Nikita began to turn the spinner on the matted chain onto the wooden drum. The bucket was very tight for some reason, and the guy was sweating before he pulled out something strange. To Nikita's surprise, it was not a bucket at all, but an oblong object that resembled a box, covered with a thick layer of slime that smelled like troll snot. Not only that, but the crate was bound crosswise by a chain with a massive lock in the middle. What on earth was it, and how had it gotten here? Maybe it's some kind of treasure, thought Nikita, retrieving the box from the well. Rummaging through the storerooms, the guy took a hammer and some sort of chisel to dislodge the lock or cut one of the chain links. "Honey, what are you doing here?" "I'm waiting for water, and you're fiddling with some junk here," stretched out Christina, watching her husband trying to free the box from the snake-like chains. Finally, after several blows in one place, the lock burst and Nikita exclaimed joyfully, "There is victory. Now we'll see what's inside." Releasing the box from the chains, the boy grasped the lid and pulled forcefully on it. There was a strange clicking sound, as if someone had crushed an eggshell. And then the lid gave way forward as Nikita tossed it aside. What he saw made him wince and turn pale. "My God, what is this?" exclaimed Christina, closing her eyes in fear. Her spouse could hardly answer this question, for he had seen such a thing for the first time. The fact was that in a wooden box, resembling in appearance a miniature player, there was the skeleton of some incomprehensible creature. Remotely human-like in size, it was no more than half a meter long, with a developed massive jaw and a huge disproportionate skull covered with remnants of red hair. The skeleton could in no way belong to a human, for instead of teeth it had fangs like a beast of prey. Its forelimbs, which served as hands, ended in claws as long as a butcher's wrench. And with this nabile from their bones, the creature had most incomprehensibly retained the remains of its clothing, consisting of a coat, shirt, pants, and leather clogs with buckles. "What is this? I'm even afraid to give it a personified name," exclaimed Christina, afraid to look at the ghastly remains. "I myself don't know what it is and how it ended up in the well," replied Nikita, slamming such a strange find. The guy left it in the storerooms, deciding to ask the former owner of the house about it if he had the chance. "Honey, let's forget about this misunderstanding and start cleaning at last," suggested Nikita, and hooking the bucket, lowered it into the well. The rest of the day was spent with rags in their hands, fighting with dust on the floor and cobwebs in the corners. Finally, when the house was put in more or less proper shape, the couple decided to have dinner, sitting around the large dining table. The young people felt themselves prosperous rich men living in luxurious houses, and it did not matter at all what they had recently discovered in the well. Christine left the night light on as she disliked the darkness. After the experience of the day, the young people fell asleep almost immediately, illuminated by the light of the nightlight. And the sleeping room, the windows of the house, looked like the empty eye sockets of a skull in which the devil's candle was burning. In the middle of the night, something woke Kristina up. It was hard to say exactly what it was. The feeling was extremely difficult to describe in words, and it was unlikely that the girl could explain the reason for it. The thing was that at a certain moment it seemed to Kristina that someone was looking at her from the other side. She realized that there was no one in the house except them. And then the girl heard muffled giggles and a strange stomping, as if a toy soldier had decided to master the art of Arshak on the oak parquet of their kitchen. Kristina felt her palms covered with sticky sweat and a nasty shiver ran down her back. The girl tried to wake Nikita, but the guy grumbled unhappily and turned his back to the wall and fell into the arms of Morpheus again. Christine had the courage to get out of bed and find out who was entertaining them. And in the morning, when the girl went to the kitchen to make coffee, she could not hold back a surprised exclamation. The thing was that all the products, including sugar and cereals, were scattered on the floor. There were matches, taken out of boxes, and colored napkins, which had been stored in neat packs before the disaster. All the walls were smeared with jam from open jars and ketchup squeezed onto the wallpaper from plastic containers. What happened here? It looks like a hand grenade exploded in here, exclaimed Nikita, attracted by his spouse's shout. I don't know. The thing is, during the night I heard some strange noise in the kitchen. I tried to wake you up, but I failed, replied Kristina, pressing her lips together resentfully. Come on, honey, it must be a cat or a rat that got in the window in these big houses. They're always full of critters. I will install a rat trap today, and the problem will be solved. Cheerfully replied Nikita, who always considered himself a guy not timid. But Krista did not, and self-confidence of her husband did not like it, because she felt that the house might in itself some kind of threat. Of course, Nikita, as promised, placed all over the house roof traps and scattered poison, but only the strange incidents after that did not stop, but on the contrary became even more extensive, as if the mysterious intruder came into taste. Not only that, now every morning things from the closets were lying on the floor. The front door, despite the fact that it was previously locked, was open wide, and Christine was also afraid to admit to her husband that at night and someone strangles, and it happened only in the moment of sleep. From what the girl doubted whether all this is really happening to her in reality. The fact was that Kristina and before was haunted by nightmares, so she was afraid that her husband would consider her crazy. This is crazy. I feel like I'm dreaming about all this, and I should open my eyes, as this nightmare will end, said Kristina, putting the morning scattered things back in the closet. In response, Nikita only clenched his fists, promising to catch the mysterious intruder. Now he thought that it was unlikely that it could be a cat or a rat. Kristina, however, only remained silent in response, realizing that it was much easier said than done. One day he decided to clean up the fall leaves in the yard. The girl opened the pantry in order to take a broom and rake. The gaze and by itself fell on a wooden box lying on the floor under the virgin toe of a sneaker. Kristina flipped the lid off, it to the side, and to her horror saw that the box was empty. "If the fire is in the box, then where is the—" whispered the girl and, trembling with fear, looked around with shaking hands. Kristina dialed Nikita's number, but the subscriber's phone was unavailable. And about an hour later Kristina received a call from a traffic police officer and reported that her husband had died in a car accident. The guy had failed to cope with the control when he was entering a sharp turn at high speed. His car literally hugged the trunk of a huge oak tree, turning the driver and the interior of the car into a homogeneous blood metal mess. "Oh God, no! What am I in for? Why?" Kristina exclaimed, falling to her knees. And of course, at that moment the girl did not know that from the pantry a strange creature that looked like a creepy hybrid of a dwarf and a ravenous beast was watching her. Kristina moved out of this creepy house the same evening. At the same time, the girl realized that the money made as payment could not be returned. When she and Nikita signed the contract at the notary, they did not pay attention to this strange clause, which eventually played a cruel joke on them. Kristina did not know that this was the whole calculation. And of course, the girl could not guess that she and Nikita were already the sixth client who tried to buy this house for nothing, and all of them either died or lost their minds. At the same time, Rich, only the real owner of the house, who through a clever clause in the contract embezzled the money paid in installments for this mansion. The cunning businessman bought this strange box in an antique shop in Budapest. The merchant who sold it assured that inside was the skeleton of a real housekeeper, according to the inscription on the box. Whoever opens the box will doom himself to imminent destruction. And it was added that after destroying the victim, the house bearer returned to his casket, which served him both as a coffin and a house. It was an ancient magic from which there was practically no escape. With its help it was possible to destroy entire families. A cunning plan immediately arose in the homeowner's mind, and he deliberately lowered the box into the well. Then he silenced the house, so that the occupants were sure to find the box. The trick worked without fail, thinking that they had found the treasure. The tenants opened the box and thereby condemned themselves to terrible suffering and death. Rarely anyone stayed in the house for more than a month, and during this time the owner of the house made $1 million, taking a prepayment for the house from its sale. Then its owners either died or went crazy, and the house, according to the contract, again went to its owner. So it happened and with Christine, who after Nikita's funeral on nervousness got into a psychiatric hospital. And the skeleton of the housekeeper again lies in a box, shrouded in chains and waiting for his new victim, who decided to buy a house at an undervalued